What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Word on Woodward, presented by Raymond. Empower your purpose with Raymond. I'm Daniela Bruce, and I will soon be joined by Art Regner and Carly Johnston. Wherever you're watching today, make sure you don't miss a single second of the Word on Woodward. And of course, wherever you're watching, also drop your comments, your thoughts, your questions, and use the hashtag Word on Woodward. We will try to get all of those thoughts on the show. And we have some great guests for you guys today. As always, Dan Dickerson will be joining us shortly. We've got interviews with Detroit News' Lynn Henning. We've got Ken Kale and 1984 World Series champion Dan Petrie to join Art for the headliner at the end of the show today. Art, how are you doing today? Are you ready for this Thursday show?
Is it 2:00 yet, Daniela? No, of course I'm ready. I cannot wait. I am so psyched up. We got a list of great guests. First of all, just let me say this. I cannot believe how many Big Bopper fans are out there. I have heard nothing about, all I hear about is Chantilly Lace. I cannot believe it. But so I'm ready to go.
I think there's some Sweet Escape fans out there too, Art. We might be onto something, both of us. No one knows your song. Well, no one my age knows your song, so that might be the problem.
Right. Well, that can only take you so far. You have to educate yourself, Daniela. I know it's tough because at Michigan State, you didn't even have to study. I understand that. But get into some good study habits. Why don't you just go back? You kids, all you do is Google now, right? So just Google Chantilly Lace, Big Bopper, and before you know it, you're an expert.
Man, I really hope Michigan loses to Minnesota. Okay, now we are going to move on to the big three today, presented by Chevrolet. And our first topic, Art, is the World Series. It's tied at 1 already. We've had 2 games in the books since Tuesday, and spectacular pitching for each of the winners in those games. Clayton Kershaw in game 1 for the Dodgers and Blake Snell in game 2 for Tampa Bay. This is really turning out to be a great series, and we're only 2 games in. I'm excited.
Well, certainly we've seen the best of each team, what we were going to see. The big thing right now, and I know that I said that I favor the Dodgers in this series, is that Tampa Bay, the Rays started to hit. They got a big home run last night, to get the lead, and that, because they have not hit. They have not hit, as we talked about in, I guess, the previous bet you didn't know. So I would say that, this could 7 games. I think, they're the 2 best teams in their leagues this year. And I think we're seeing why, because there's an ebb and flow to each and every one of these games. I thought Tampa was a shoo-in last night, but LA, kept chipping away. And if they got a big hit or two, suddenly it was going to be 6-6. And so it's been fascinating. And, and they have days off too, which is good, even though they're playing in the same city. They have a day off, rest your pitching staff. We're going to see a lot of pitchers, both, going to their bullpens because they're so good. So this is, they call it the Fall Classic, and I'm going to call it the Late Fall Classic. And it's shaping up to be every bit a classic. So this is a very entertaining World Series.
It is. And of course, we'll have all the updates as the World Series continues right here on the Word on Woodward. Moving on to our second topic of the big three. We're going to talk a little bit about the Red Wings and the situation that they have coming up with Tyler Bertuzzi. He enters arbitration. It's scheduled for Sunday, Art. I know there are quite a few possibilities for the Red Wings, and arbitration isn't something that they normally like to do. Do you see a deal getting done before Sunday?
Well, I go back to the last time a player filed for arbitration, and that was whom I affectionately called Tommy Tatar, but it's Tomasz Tatar.
That's filed not a very creative nickname.
Pardon me? I'm sorry, Danielle, you kind of jumped on me. What did you say?
I said it's not a very creative nickname. Normally you're pretty good at that, and Tommy is not very creative.
You know what? As I told him, because he was from Slovakia, I said, if you were an American, you would not be Thomas Tatar, or a North American. I say North American because I'm inclusive. I include our Canadian brother, and whenever I talk about North American hockey players, I said if you were North American, you would not be. Everyone would say Tommy Tatar because it has a nice little ring to it. And he told me, he said, I like it. I like it. Tommy Tatar. I like it. So anyway, I also told him, and this was for a podcast, the Red and White Authority, new episode. Just, what do you say? Drop today. Chris Draper go through all 12 draft picks. Episode 152, the Red and White Authority, DetroitRedWings.com. Listen to it. Well, anyway, I also told Tatar that he was never going to be traded 3 days later at the trade deadline.
You said that, right?
Now, this is where but what I'm saying, because you asked me about arbitration and Bertuzzi, Tommy Tatar went through arbitration, went through the process, an arbitrator, Red Wings present their case, Tatar and his group present their case. The arbitrator can either take Tatar's number, the Red Wings number, or something in between. I'm not exaggerating. As soon as he walked out of the arbitration hearing, Tatar signed a 5-year deal with the Red Wings. So anything can happen. If it goes to Sunday, they'll have 48 hours to the arbitrator. And as I said, he can take one or the other or something in between.
All right, Art, let me ask you this question. Our good friend Ansar Khan from MLive wrote about this. Yes, may have an option. Well, they will have an option to buy out another player past the normal buyout window, which ended October 8th. That's intriguing because they go to arbitration or they are going to arbitration with Tyler Bertuzzi. They are eligible for another buyout. Do you see them utilizing that?
I think that this is really a difficult question. If you look at it based on what Steve has done in free agency, it really does appear that the Red Wings are well stocked at the forward core. Mm-hmm. Will he use it or will he not? I mean, because you're correct. If you have a player file for arbitration, you're awarded another buyout, and that's where the Red Wings are at. And there's only one candidate that they would buy out. That would be Franz Nielsen. And I'm not sure with Justin being bought out and being on the books for 6 years, if you buy Nielsen out, he's on the books for that might just be a lot of free money being paid to players that are no longer on your roster. Mm-hmm. I think Steve may hold back and I don't know this for a fact because Steve, this is Steven Gregory Yzerman's team. He's going to do whatever he wants. So I would say that at this point, I don't see it happening, especially with Justin Abdicator being bought out. But don't hold me to it. Does that answer your question, Daniela?
Somewhat. I know when we talk about something that Steve Yzerman may do, we know it's speculation. We all know that. Right. So definitely, we don't know the answer to the question. We're just talking about it. But we will talk more about this with Ken Kale later in the show for Downtown Hockey Town. And right now, we're going to get on to our third and final topic. I hear there might be a little bit of a technical issue, so all of you get to stare at Art. Oh, there we go. We've got it. We're back on track. Here we go.
Lace. Ponytail hanging.
You guys just looked at Art for the entire show and I was just kind of talking over it. That would have been great. But anyway,
I've been mistaken for Tom Cruise on many occasions over the years.
Very
especially when I'm not like a Macy's or Hudson's balloon, Thanksgiving Day Parade balloon, but I'm kind of balloonish right now. So it's a legendary comic Chris Farley now. It's no longer Tom Cruise. So.
Oh my gosh. All right. On to topic number 3. It is something fun, you guys. This is a really fun thing to talk about. Little Caesars Arena is going to host the 2024 men's basketball regional tournament. So regional means that's a Sweet 16 and an Elite 8 at Little Caesars Arena in 2024. We have held the first and second rounds in previous years, and next year we'll have the first and second rounds again. So 2021 first and second round, 2024 Sweet 16 and Elite 8. That's really exciting, Art, because we all know how exciting March Madness is. And when you get that far into the tournament, hopefully Michigan State will be there.
Well, hopefully Michigan State will be there. I think we all know that Juwan Howard and the Michigan Wolverines will definitely be there. But with all that said, what's great about this is that Little Caesars Arena is a wonderful arena, one of the best facilities in the entire world, as we know. But it showcases Detroit. When you walk out on Woodward, walking into a vibrant area. I mean, as you know, I volunteer at the Detroit Institute of Arts, and someday that's going to pick up again. But if you go down that way, you head into like the the DIA, Wayne State, a lot of great restaurants, Midtown, and then you walk uptown to downtown Detroit. So I think it's a great showcase, and we're going to have people from all over the country, perhaps all over the world here. And I just think it's wonderful. I think it's great, and is a show-off place in itself. But then when you add everything around it and the whole district Detroit starting to come together, this is a good thing for our area, a good thing for our city, and it generates, millions of dollars, which is always good.
It is great. Like you said, Little Caesars Arena, it's an award-winning facility. So it's really exciting to see events like these coming to the city of Detroit. That wraps it up for today's Big Three. A big thank you to Chevy. Chevy cares. That is why Chevy Clean dealers are committed to using enhanced vehicle cleaning measures with CDC-approved cleansers before delivering your vehicle after purchase or service. So when you're ready, you can find new roads with confidence. We've still got a very exciting show planned for you guys right now. We're going to bring on our first guest, which is Dan Dickerson, your Tigers radio play-by-play announcer, joining us for the mailbag delivers. Dan, I feel like it's been way too long since we've seen you. What have you been doing without Tigers baseball?
Just keeping up with the playoffs and watching really some impressive baseball. Whether it's the World Series, the NLCS, ALCS level of play was just phenomenal to me. So getting caught up on some reading, my never-ending quest to get organized for next year, and watching some pretty good baseball.
Yeah, how's that going? Last time you joined us, you said you were going to be organized for next season way earlier than you normally are. How you doing? Is it working out for you?
Not bad. I'm actually doing, the work I do in January, which is kind of a look back at the season. I'm actually doing it now so that whatever impressions I had of players are actually in my brain still, instead of like, how did that guy finish? I don't remember a whole lot. No, I'm writing down my thoughts and observations just to get me going for all the questions I'm going to be asking coaches and players next spring.
Yeah, especially with that blur of a season, 60 games. So you're definitely going to have to write that down.
No question.
All right, let's get into our questions from the fans. The first one is for Dan. Bob from Holland asks, after watching Mookie Betts this postseason, do you think this makes Cleveland rethink shopping Francisco Lindor?
Bob has asked a great question because it touches on so many things for all teams leading into the offseason. And I would start with, for the Cleveland Indians, first you look at what was the return for the Boston Red Sox for Mookie Betts, premium player in the last year of his contract. So they got a pretty good return, led by Verdugo and a couple of other prospects. It's a pretty nice return, but you also have to remember they included David Price in that deal. So that's the first thing. What could you get? I would think for Francisco Lindor, a one-year rental, you could get a premium prospect, another couple thrown in. You then have to think about what's the market. You have a huge class of shortstops on the market after 2021. Trevor Story, Javier Baez, Carlos Correa, Corey Seager. I mean, it's a loaded free agent market. So do you want to try to maybe beat that, the glut, if you will, of superstar shortstops on the market in 2021 by trading him now? All right, then what is the team that you're going to trade him to? I think the advantage that the Red Sox had, LA had a deep farm system. They have money. They probably had a pretty good feel that they could sign Mookie Betts to an extension, which they did. So you're ideally trying to find that team that will take him on, take on the probability that they can extend him, and this is a $300 million contract. You can just bet on it. That's a very small number of teams. You start, of course, with the Yankees. They've got Gleyber Torres. He's not a great shortstop, but it certainly looks like he's going to be there. The guy hit 38 home runs last year, didn't have a good year this year. So I would say that takes them off the board. The Dodgers are going to lose Corey Seager in a year, but they're going to probably re-sign him. I mean, look at the offseason or the postseason that guy's having. It's ridiculous. So in other words, the more you think about who they would trade with And obviously you want a farm system. Matching those things up is very difficult. That's why that Boston deal with LA was almost a perfect storm for the Red Sox. A deep farm system and a team that had the resources to sign Mookie Betts. I think it'd be very hard for Cleveland to find that same thing. And then you add in all the uncertainty of the prospects you're getting. You haven't seen them play for a year and a half or over a year, because none of them played this year for the most part, if you're talking about trading for someone in the minor league. So a lot of different factors off season. In the end, I would say probably not. Art, you have a question.
I do have a question. First of all, is that a screened-in port?
Yes, this is. I came out here on this miserable day just for you, Art, because I know you always like the background. We always have those funky colors in the summer. I have no idea why, but now you're getting a little bit of the true fall colors in the backyard. And I did this just for you. It's freezing out here.
Well, I love the screened-in porch. Hopefully your hot dog maker's out there so you can just kind of still, you're protected. You have a little shelter, but you can still, be outdoors and have your hot dog and just relax, study your sheets for next season. It's great. But I do have a legitimate question based on what you said. With the way the Tigers prospects and the way that they have rebuilt their farm system, LA in a couple of years ago, where they have assets that they can trade and maybe bring in a Mookie Betts type player.
Yeah, and again, the risk is always that you are, there's no certainty that you're going to be able to extend this guy. So that's a gamble that you have to take. So you would have to get some feel. And I'm sure the Dodgers had, not just because of the money, but they had a feel for whether Mookie Betts wanted to be in LA after his year. And they clearly had, you have to have that feel. To answer your question, I think that's a real possibility. I mean, Mr. Illich's philosophy was you build around superstars. And I think Chris Illich watched that and knows that really is a pretty legitimate way to build a winning team. You build around a superstar. And whether it's probably not next year, I certainly get intrigued by the thought. I try not to let my brain go there, but wouldn't it be something if the Tigers could trade for a Francisco Lindor, extend him, and all of a sudden you've got a shortstop of the future? But in terms of that kind of player, Art, I think that's a possibility because the payroll is now getting down, I think, below $70 million this coming year. It's really Miguel Cabrera and everybody else in terms of the big dollar contracts. And I do think Chris Illich has indicated that he will spend money when the time is right. It's not going to get back to a $200 million payroll. But I do think when you target a couple of guys and you build around a superstar, there's something to that.
It'll be interesting, Dan. Like you said, there's a lot of different factors that are going into all of this, especially with the prospects basically losing a season. They haven't seen them play in a long time. So, yes. Very interesting situation to keep our eye on. Art, your question is related to the Red Wings. Ralph from New Baltimore asks, we've heard a lot about the Burt and Mantha restricted free agents, but what about Dmytro Timashov, only 24 and showed some promise? Is he going to be a wing next season?
First of all, again, I just have to say, and his aggressiveness, he was a man that wanted to unleash the torque this season at Comerica Park. So, so we know where he's coming from. I love it. Keep it going, Double D. Dmitry Timashov is a really interesting case. The Red Wings claimed him on trade deadline day, which was February 24th. Brendan Shanahan, the old sneaky Irishman, and I'm part Irish, so I guess I can say that, right? And not offend anyone. But Brendan tried to sneak him through waivers on trade deadline day, which is chaotic. Everyone's making trades. General managers are talking, except for one general manager in Detroit who knows Shanny and says, what's Brendan going to do? And Brendan tried to sneak him through through waivers. The Red Wings obviously had the first choice because they were, unfortunately, the worst team in the league. They nabbed Timashov. So does he have a chance to make the Red Wings? Certainly he has a chance to make the Red Wings. This is Steve's guy. He's a barrel of a player. I mean, he's 5'10", 192. He plays out there like a little wrecking ball. In 39 games for Toronto last year, he had 9 points, 4 goals, 5 assists. He was a +1 in his average ice time was 806. 806. Now, that's an important number to remember because when he got to Detroit, he didn't get any points in his 5 games, but his ice time was 11:54, almost 12. Opportunity to make this team. I mean, they want young forwards. He's aggressive. Now that, again, we just talked about Justin Abdicator. Timashov is one of those kind of players. He has a physical nature to his game. He has some offensive ability. Can he step into that 4th line? But there will be competition for him. And the name not to sleep on, and I love this guy, is Giovanni Smith. So, and that's the good thing. That's the really now what Steve has done in one offseason. I know he was there last year, but, he's still getting to know the team, is that he has created competition within the roster. And as Double D can tell you, when you have your own team are competing against each other for playing spots, your team, first of all, they're rising and they're going to get better. That on-team competition really breeds success and really breeds camaraderie, and it's a friendly competition, but nonetheless, it's a competition. So Timashov will have a chance. If he doesn't make it, and I don't quote Mike Babcock very often, but when you would ask Mike Babcock about a player, he would say, whoa, geez, Dan Dickerson, what's the deal with Double D? His ice time is down. And he would always say, I don't dictate a player's ice time. The player and that makes and that's true, and that makes perfect sense. Timashov, there's a job there. There's an opening on this roster. Steve has made that very clear. Now it's up to Timashov to win that spot, but he does have a shot.
It'll be interesting, Art. As you mentioned, we got to see Timashov play with the Leafs last season and a few games with the Red Wings, but like you said, he was acquired on February 24th. Not much later did the season pause because of the pandemic and coronavirus, so we didn't really get too much of him as a Red Wing, and there definitely have been some improvements to this Red Wings team, so it'll be interesting to see how he mixes in come the season, whenever that may be. Moving on to question 3, which is for Dan. Jeff from Lansing asked, given the amount of things the Tigers look to do this offseason with the manager search and filling out the roster, when do you expect the hot stove season to ramp up for baseball?
Another good question. I think, first and foremost, the manager search is well underway right now. Al Avila has already conducted many interviews, all by Zoom, we understand so far. And then once the World Series ends and he kind of pares his list down, and remember, Alex Cora and AJ Hinch are on that list, and you cannot, even in a Zoom call, talk to them until either the 1st of November or right after the World Series. I'm not sure the exact date, but you have to wait until then to talk to them. So I think he's getting a feel for the depth of the field, meaning it's a good field. There are many good candidates. I think he's really excited about, the possibilities of who it might be, but it's a deep field. So I would think the manager search could easily be done by, the middle of the month of November. And then you get into, I think we'll get an early indication of what this offseason is going to be like. Think of what baseball has to figure out, what GMs in figuring out their budgets have to have a feel for. And that's why it's so important to have fans in the stands for the World Series. Baseball is just now, as of last week in the NLCS, figuring out what it means to have fans in the stands, how many you can have, how well it works, what are the problems with social distancing and making sure people aren't clustering and keeping their masks on. They're figuring all these things out. That should help next year. But as you try to put together a budget and you're a general manager, you don't know. I mean, I would think all you can do right now is the best case scenario might be 20 to 25% fans in the stands to start the year. And hopefully by the end of the year, we have built to a bigger number than that. And I have no idea. I'm not picturing full stadium by the end of the year. I hope I'm wrong. But anyway, you at least know, okay, we can budget for this many fans if we fill those seats on a nightly basis. That helps our budget projections. We can project this much from TV revenue, this much from concessions and fans based on this number. So all those things have to be figured out. And that's not a small thing. That is not a small thing at all. But then I think free agency starts mid-November, and you'll get a pretty good feel right away. If everything just lags for a long time, that's a sign that it's going to be a slow market and not a good market for players in terms of signing that long-term deal. I think what you'll see from the Tigers, probably similar to this past year, target a couple of guys who might be 1 or 2 year free agencies, guys you can get for a 1 or 2 year deal, and sign them, target them. That's what they did with C.J. Cron. C.J. Cron could have signed with a lot of teams. He chose the Tigers because they targeted him and made it clear, we want you on this team. So I think for the Tigers' sake, given what they're going to go after and the types of players they're going to go after, I think you might see some action pretty early on. The Cron and Scope signings were in December of last year. That's probably a reasonable timetable. But again, with all the uncertainty, I think we're going to have to wait and see. Once free agency starts, I think you'll get a pretty good feel of what kind of market it's going to be by the action or lack of action early on in November.
Dan, I think we've asked you this question probably 100 times since the Tigers season ended, or maybe even during the season. But looking at it now, do you still see a spot for C.J. Cron, Jonathan Scope, Austin Romine, those guys on this Tigers team, or do you think they'll go in a different direction come free agency?
Let's start with Romine, because I think that's one of the more intriguing ones. I thought he was a slam dunk to stay on, just given the way he was handling the staff, the raves that he was getting, and he was hitting a little bit. He really struggled down the stretch at the plate, and Alavida's made it clear that you'd like a little bit of offensive production from that. The track record says he can produce, but maybe he's better in a reserve role, getting 200, 250 plate appearances like he did with the Yankees. So that leaves the question of, do you just try to patch together maybe 3 guys sharing the load? That's not ideal. 2 guys, Jake Rogers getting the majority of the at-bats. He's so unproven. That's a risk. I'm tipping his hand by saying that the free agent market kind of looks the same year in and year out. I do like the idea of maybe a James McCann, but you'd have to sign him to a multi-year deal. And given that Jake Rogers is still a prospect and Dillinger's on the way, do you want to commit to a 3-year deal? But I am intrigued by that thought, just because of the person that he is, the catcher that he is. He's become a better hitter. That's intriguing. Scope, to me, is a slam dunk at second base. There's no obvious player to fill that spot right now. There just isn't. And he provides pop. And I know his back cooled a little bit, but you know what you're going to get? He's really solid at second base, and you're going to get some pop. C.J. Cron, I can picture him being kind of a camp invite because of the uncertainty over his knee. That was a 6 to 8 month recovery. 8 months on the outside puts you in spring training. So that would be way too much uncertainty, I think, to commit a large dollar amount. But he also showed that he could be a force in the middle of the lineup, and I think that that's a guy that they could maybe work out a deal saying, minor league invite, if you make the team, if you're healthy, you can make this amount of money. So those are two certainly possibilities with those two. For Romine, again, they loved him, but I just think they're looking for a little bit more of the bat.
We're going to move on to question 4, guys. The final question of the mailbag for today. Both of you are going to answer this. Art, you can answer first, and it's Kelsey from Farmington Hills asking, we're seeing a lot about the bromance between Riley Green and Spencer Torkelson. Which former players do you remember being best friends? And we really are. Both of them expressed how much they're enjoying each other's company. They're like going to the park together every day. They're stopping at Starbucks and getting coffees. Quite the bromance, and I like it. I'm happy.
Well, I think I like it too. I've got to say that Double D's Hot Stove League is going to start right after this segment is over. It's so cold out there, you can tell. Double D is turning blue, and his little miniature lights behind him went from white to blue. So it is very, very cold. So Double D, you're a trooper. We really compliment you on that. When I look at friends, I know that obviously – Rosema and Gibby are very, very tight. They were really tight back then. They married sisters, and there's all big happy family. But I really, and we're talking about Riley Green and Spencer Torkelson, and they're coming up together through the Tiger system, through the minor league system. They're only a year apart in draft, and you're going to see them kind of rise up through the ranks, and they're experiencing everything together primarily the first time, which is how you build a team, especially your core group, and they're definitely a core group. And even though the group that I'm about to mention right now, the Red Wings had stars on their team. Obviously, Steve, Sergey, Nick, Vladdy was a star. I could go on about the stars, but I'm going to talk about the Adirondack Red Wings, a group that consisted of Draper, Maltby, Ozzie, Ticker, Kevin Hodson, Marty Lapointe. They all played together, and I think some of them won a championship in Adirondack, if I remember correctly. I'm going off the top of my head. So, they were good, tight friends. Ticker, when we had him on, told the story of him having literally a heart attack while he's making a spaghetti dinner with Chris Draper, and Draper driving him to the hospital saying, "No, you can't finish the sauce. We got to go." And that's what I'm talking about. Those guys, they still have that bond today. You see Maltby and Draper all the time because they work for the Red Wings, and then Ozzie's there, whether he's beating the drum with getting the crowd going. But when you see them all together, and then Marty works for Montreal and he comes in to Detroit, Timmy Taylor, he's part of that group. When they walk in the room, when you're in that media lounge and you see those guys, I call them the Adirondack Red Wings. You can tell that bond is really, really strong. And what I like about what the Tigers are doing is that it kind of reminds me of the Adirondack Red Wings, the way that they're building from within and having friendships. The Red Wings have that going right now too. Joe Valeno, Rasmussen, all those guys down in Grand Rapids, those guys are also being very, growing that way. So that's what I like to see. I think that teams do that on purpose, obviously. They want to build up a camaraderie and a friendship, but I would have to go with that Adirondack Red Wing group that, was the beginning of the Coaster, the grind line.
All right, Dan, what do you think? I know you have to remember some Tiger romances from the past.
Well, it's an interesting question because I really was searching my brain for all the years that I've been covering Tiger baseball and following them since I was a kid. And, I'm sure there have been similar bromances, if you will. But in terms of, I can see that, to me, there's been such good clubhouses in the years covering the team. I don't know who hangs out with each other because I don't hang out with guys after games or when they're away from the ballpark. So there's nothing that really stuck out to me other than it really makes you think about how good the clubhouses were under, say, Jim Leland for all those years, and under Ron Gardenhire in recent years. There are a lot of friendships that have formed. To me, the thing that I think stands out about this friendship, this budding friendship between Green and Torpel, fast friends already, is that it might be unique in the last couple of decades. And I'm sure there have been friendships, that you just don't know about. And it speaks to something that's so important that Art was just touching on. This is going to be a core of players coming up, the likes of which we haven't seen since perhaps that 84 core came up together through the farm system. Those teams from 2006 till really through 2014, 2015, a lot of those guys came in trades. It wasn't a core that came up together. I think what Kansas City did in 2014, 2015, building to 2 World Series appearances, that was a core of players. And I think the important thing to think about is this is unique to the Tigers really in recent decades, and the importance of those guys coming up together and pushing each other. And I do think those friendships and that time spent together and that desire, that driving desire to win. Look at the comments you get from Casey Mize, Tarek Skubal, Riley Green, Spencer Torkelson. These guys don't want it. They want to be great. They want to build a winning team. And I think there is so much importance to that coming up together. That friendship between Skubal and Mize is so important, but you include Faedo and Manning in that group too. That's a unique bonding of those 4 guys who are all going to be, I think, big parts of the Tiger rotation in the years ahead. So while I can't think of any one that stands out, maybe Matt Anderson and Jeff Weaver, but they were kind of heads. But I mean, there isn't one that stands out. This is a really important thing that's going on right now.
Speaking of knucklehead, Art, what do you have to say?
I'm going to tell you this. I'm going to quote an American classic. There is going to be a scene in the dugout when this core of Tigers are at Comerica Park And there's going to be that watershed moment where we're either going to do this, fellas, or we're not. Arthur Mize will walk into that dugout, gather those guys together, and say, Dorothy, we ain't in Toledo anymore. It's time to perform, And and they'll all know what that means because they were all there. And because they were all there, that will be a bit of a rallying cry. And I'm pretty sure that it's going to be Casey that's going to do this, even though he's a pitcher. But I would say that, and that's what you need. I mean, that's what you need. We have heard, there were certain, aspects again. And because I was so associated with the Red Wings the last 30 years or whatever it's been, I know of certain moments where certain players have stood up and said something, and it isn't, let's break out the pom-poms and, sing, zippity doodah, zippity day, or, sunshine rainbows, say something because, and it gets to, it cuts to the heart of the matter. It cuts to the core and it elevates that team. And there's going to be a moment like that for these Tigers. And it's now germinating with this. I mean, I love rebuilds when you start to see the rebuild starting to take shape and you're starting to see these players. That's a great thing. That's a great thing. Till that moment when this Tigers team has that moment where somebody does say something and they all will point to it. They'll all say, hey, Torque, what the hell? What happened? You hit that 3-run homer, you were over 20. And they'll go, it was Arthur. He stood up and he said, and that got the boys going. There will be a moment like that.
Well, I'm excited for that day, Art. I'm very pumped now.
I'm not making this up. You know what I'm talking about.
You painted a picture.
You
painted a picture. I've got it in my head already. I'm thinking Torque or Green, to be honest with you, because like you said, it's rare that a starting pitcher, and I know you're partial to Arthur, but you had a picture in my brain, and I got little chills. Maybe it's the weather. I don't know.
Well, I think you better call 911 if you're getting chills right now, Double D, based on that story.
Well, Dan, thank you so much for taking the time to join us as always. We'll be talking to you very soon. Now you can go inside and warm up.
All right. Thanks, guys. Always good talking with you.
See you, Dan. Thank you.
And a big thank you to Little Caesars for delivering the mailbag right here on the Word on Woodward. Little Caesars proudly introduces their hot and ready pepperoni cheeser. You get a large fresh mozzarella and a toasted Parmesan and Asiago cheese crust for just $7. Try our no contact pizza portal or delivery from Little Caesars. All right, you guys, the Word on Woodward is actually going to take a quick break right now to address some technical difficulties. Stay with us. We'll be back in just a couple of minutes. Welcome back, everybody. Thank you for sticking with us while we figured out some technical issues. Now we are going to jump into Catching Up with Carly, presented by Meyer. And Carly is going to join us for this one. We've got a little bit of a special edition of Catching Up with Carly today. So, Carly, what do you got for us?
That is right. We're going to do a bit of like a let's socialize kind of vibe with this Catching Up with Carly. So I do have a bunch of really cool, funny, for the most part, Instagram, Facebook, social media posts of our new free agent signings. So first, we're going to start off. We're going to rewind back to 2010 when, I don't like to throw salt in the wound, but when Team Canada took gold over Team USA, Ryan Getzlaf and Bobby Ryan, teammates, not on Team Canada or Team USA, but in their respective teams, they had an issue with each other when they got back to the NHL playing, and I'm just gonna leave this video here. So take a look at this.
All right, Silver. Next competition, painting challenge.
Oh, bud, I'm up first. What do you think?
Not bad, man. Not bad.
I would have painted the same thing if I had known I could turn the canvas horizontal.
Okay, so as we know, Getzlaf got the gold, Bobby Ryan got silver. So what they did when they got back to Anaheim is they did a little bit of competition with some really random things throughout the arena there. And so painting was one of them. Obviously, we saw Getzlaf paint The Last Supper, and not quite sure about what Bobby Ryan was painting. But it's fun to see these personalities. You guys should watch the whole thing. It's hilarious. I think it was a skit that they did. I know, Art, when I was talking about it earlier, it was something that you mentioned. You remembered watching it, and something you wanted to bring up to Bobby Ryan.
I really did. I mean, I think it's excellent. Obviously, Bobby Ryan on Team USA, Ryan Getzlaf on Team Canada. Carly, real quick though, I see your little girl power medallion behind you there, hanging on the wall. Is that in honor of one of my all-time favorite shows? And I love Blossom of the Powerpuff Girls. Wasn't the Powerpuff Girls girl power? Wasn't there? You know, because is that what that's about? I hope it is.
It's for Daniela and I, girl power, and you too. I know.
Beautiful.
I know.
I do. I'm a big Powerpuff Girls fan. That show is outstanding. You know, that must be in your wheelhouse. Weren't you like toddlers when that first came out or something?
I
don't know
watched
about
that
toddlers.
What was the Mojo?
Mojo Jojo, that's exactly right.
Jojo.
That's exactly
right. For that show.
Blossom, Buttercup,
Like
and what was the third one?
Blossom, Buttercup, and Bubbles. Bubbles was my favorite.
Yeah. Well, you know what? Now, there's a story because Bubbles, you know how they each had a color? Like Blossom, I think, was red, and Buttercup was green. Mm-hmm. Bubbles was Honolulu blue. On the side of the Lion's helmet, Bubbles. So I was naturally attracted to Bubbles as a character, and fans used to send me the Lion's helmet with Bubbles on the side instead of the lion flying.
Wait. Time out. I know we are getting pretty off topic here, but I have to confirm this. You actually did make that up?
What, Bubbles? Yes.
Yeah.
Yes,
oh
I nicknamed him because it looked like popping bubbles in the air. It wasn't really fierce, even though they've roided him up. The new Bubbles, the new helmet, they've roided him up. You know, he looks a little more menacing. I'll tell you, Mark Spindler. Really, Carly, Mark Spindler. When I started working with him in radio, you know, Mark's a great guy, and you know, congratulations to Rocco on committing to Notre Dame, his son. Mark always said he was going to be offensive lineman from the day he was born. He was absolutely right. But Mark would say stuff like, yeah, he goes, you know, because I always wondered why Bubbles. He goes, where did that name come from? And because the Lion players themselves would call it Bubbles on the side of their helmet. Yeah, I have to take credit for that. That was absolutely me.
I love it.
I mean, it was.
You know,
the late great Drew Sharp can attest to it. I know Terry Foster, my radio partner way back when. Obviously, yes. Bubbles. I mean,
Bubbles
really
is
look at it. It looks like Bubbles is popping bubbles in the air. That's why I started calling him Bubbles.
A nickname. You know, Art Regner loves giving nicknames. So
yeah, I do.
Moving
but I do
on.
love the Powerpuff Girls.
Thank you. Okay. Moving on. Torrey Stetcher is another guy that we acquired in free agency. And as we know, he played with the Zadina twins. And they pulled a little bit of an April Fool's prank on him without giving too much away. They told him going into practice that he was being moved from the D line to be a forward to play with them on a line. So check it out.
So did you ever think you'd be playing with Zadina?
No. I've never played sport before, so it's an opportunity, pretty exciting.
What did you think of it?
Felt a little lost, but it's good practice. And the speed, I guess they do work a bit harder in practice. So.
We tried to talk to him out on the ice, but he couldn't talk because he was so tired. I guess playing forward is pretty tough compared to playing demon, but you know what day it is today, right?
Yeah.
April Fool's Day. So get back to playing D, eh? Yeah. You were good.
Oh my God! I didn't even think of that.
Ah, you didn't?
No.
Oh my gosh.
It's hilarious. The best part is you can see that he didn't really get it at first, even when they said it's April Fool's Day. And he's walking away, and then when you see him like, oh my, he's like, wow, I'm not going to be a forward on the line with the Zadina twins. I'm headed back to the blue line next practice. And then next up, our other free agent signing in net, Thomas Greiss. Hockey players usually like to play golf when they're in their off season. Thomas Greiss likes to mountain bike, and not just like leisurely ride down the street. He likes to really mountain bike. Check out. But that's actually a fallen tree. And what he rides up in the beginning is the one side of the trunk. See, that's a tree trunk. And then that's the tree. I thought that was pretty outstanding. Over on his Instagram, he has a lot of really cool pictures and videos of him mountain biking. I personally can't do that. I can ride a bike, but I can't do that.
Yeah, that looks like he was out at Hines Park, because believe it or not, when I do exercise, which, isn't as often as it should be, I do mountain bike. I have a mountain bike, and I go to Hines Park. They have bike trails and stuff. That looks just like Hines Park. There's a lot of fallen trees. There's a lot of dead things in Hines Park. We won't get into what, especially this time of year. But that looked great. That I would like to see him. I mean, I guess that's impressive, Carly. But he's only going like 1 mile an hour. I mean, even if he were to fall.
Hey, call me. We'll go meet up at Hines Park, and I want to see you go up a tree trunk and down a tree.
I mean, Carly, it's a fallen tree trunk. I mean, that thing might be 3 inches off the air.
That the control is the hardest part. When you're working out or you're doing something like that.
Okay. All right. I guess I can see that with balance. I could see that. I could do that. I could definitely do that.
All the core strength.
I'm telling you right now, even a bloated guy like me at this point in my life, I could definitely do that.
Oh, those are fighting words. I'm going to let Thomas Greiss know you said that. All right, moving on. Also talking about Thomas Greiss. He, during quarantine, like Art and everyone else in the world, knew that hair to that of Bill O'Reilly and Will Ferrell. I can't remember their character names in Step Brothers for some reason right now, but that's pretty funny. And of course, speaking of hair, I cannot have a segment like this without bringing up John Merrell's mullet. Check it out. It's the best, worst thing that's going to happen to your eyes today.
I love it. I love it.
Yikes.
Oh, that's great.
I might try that out, Art.
It looks like, and actually that was a year ago today. Wait, that was a year ago today that I had Art wear a mullet wig on
Was
game
yours
day
today?
live.
Really?
Let's see.
Yeah,
I
I had
hope
it.
you can pull up a mullet.
You know,
I'm gonna find that picture real quick.
my hair to a mullet. I mean, at one time when it gets long and it gets bushy. You know, it comes out like it looks like a lion mane or something.
Oh,
Yeah,
are you good, man? Look at that's
Yeah.
you need to do that. Bring that back.
Check that out, everybody. That is
Jason
me.
Mullet.
It-
Jason
you
Mullet
know,
had a moment that day.
I look like your long lost Aunt Bertha or something.
Oh, that's me. Hold on, we don't.
You do.
Wait, is our thing you know, like long lost Aunt Bertha?
Who-
And there's
Wait,
Jason Woolley all the way on the
Look at
left.
Jason Woolley in there too.
Jason Woolley hasn't had that much hair in his head since he was in like 8th grade.
Jason actually looks decent.
So do
You
you,
look pretty
Art.
good too.
You know who you remind me of? You remind me of like
Oh no.
like an 80s.
Oh no.
Well, 80s that's makes sense. Little Caesars Arena,
Yeah, I was
but
gonna
like
say-
you look like you could be the lead singer of a rock band.
Right. You know what? I'll give you this much. I look like a bloated Vince Neil from Motley Crue.
Okay, leave out the bloated part, but I see it. But that was a fun segment. I would have, loved to have my interview, but this is almost as good.
Wow, thank you, Carly. I appreciate that.
Yeah,
I really mean thank you.
Is
That's
that
close.
what a backhanded compliment sounds like?
I know,
think
a
so.
little bit.
Boom.
A little bit. Usually the segment is, an interview, but I liked it today. Maybe we should start switching it up.
We enjoyed it too, Carly. Very good stuff. That Bobby Ryan Getzloff video, the whole thing is absolutely
It's a
hilarious.
good one.
It's
I
excellent.
was
Yeah, it's
laughing
very, very
last
good.
night watching it. The whole thing. That was the one clip where I laughed out loud when he was like, "Well, if I knew we could have drawn horizontal, I could have drawn that as well."
I could have
There's
drawn the
some-
Last Supper. Hey, what are you talking about?
Yeah,
That's
right?
nothing good.
The whole thing is great. There's a moment too where Getzloff is getting a suit tailored, and Getzloff said that Bobby Ryan could as well, but he had to stand on a lower podium. Just stuff like it's just funny. It's a good skit. But that's all I have for this segment. Make sure you're sending in your questions and holler at me. #WordOnWoodward and talk about any statements later on in Let's Socialize.
Well, thank you, Carly. That's right, you guys. Holler at Carly. That does it for today's Catching Up with Carly, presented by Meyer. A big thank you to Meyer for presenting Catching Up with Carly every week right here on the Word on Woodward. And Carly, don't go anywhere, because now we are going to get into Bet You Didn't Know, presented by PointsBet Sportsbook. And today we are going to talk about... Yeah, look at this, guys. This is fun. All right. Today we're Red Wings and Red Wings prospects that are playing overseas in European countries while the NHL is not going on here. So we'll start with talking about the guys that are on loan that are currently either in, or actually I shouldn't say currently, they played in Grand Rapids last season or played on the Red Wings last season. So we have Moritz Seider, Filip Hronek, Filip Zadina, Gustav Lindstrom, Philip Larson, Matthias Bromia, Jared McIsaac, Michael Rasmussen, and Joe Veleno. So that's a really long list, and we're going to talk a little bit more about those guys, but I'm going to have Art kick off the segment. Why don't you talk about some of our newest Red Wings and Lucas Raymond and Theodore Niederbach?
Well, I definitely will. Well, thank you, Daniela. I appreciate it. Carly, welcome back. I know that you, I know you almost disconnected yourself, but you were quick to the draw.
I got to go get some water. I think
Yeah,
I stayed around.
You're going to get water, and we know some raw fruit and those like broccoli. We know what's on your plate, on your palate, so to speak. First of all, I want to go to Lucas Raymond, which is really interesting. Lucas Raymond was the 4th overall pick, as we know, by the Red Wings. And I know I've told this story before ad nauseum probably, but at the Summer Showcase 2 years ago in Plymouth, Lucas Raymond was considered right up there with Alexis Lafreniere by all the scouts. Who's who of the NHL? All 31 teams are there. They're all looking at these 4 teams. 2 Team USAs, 2 Team Canadas, and a team from Finland and a team from Sweden. Lucas Raymond was obviously on the Swedish team, but he was the talk of the tournament heading into the Summer Showcase, as was Alexis Lafreniere. He was a little bit banged up and a little bit hurt. So we were all there. When he did play, he was impressive. However, he played for Frölunda in the Swedish Hockey League, in the men's league, considered the third best league in the entire world behind the big show. The men's league is the NHL. So Lucas Raymond last year, and I want to get this right, in 33 games, he had 7 points, just 7 points in 33 games as a last season. Chris Draper on the podcast, the Red and White Authority, and last week when we had him on the headliner, said that Lucas Raymond didn't get a lot of ice time. He was one of the youngest players in the Swedish Hockey League. His numbers fell off a little bit because he wasn't put in a lot of situations, maybe only averaging 10 minutes a game. And so his stock falling off just a little bit might benefit Detroit and Red Wing fans, because if he would have been a star in the Swedish Hockey League for Frölunda as an 18-year-old, he probably would not have been there at number 4. And so what has young Lucas Raymond done here in the Swedish Hockey League? Listen to this. In 9 games played, he has 5 points, 3 goals, 2 assists, 4 penalty minutes, and is a +3. That, my friends, is progress. That's Lucas Raymond. That's why the Red Wings took him 4th overall. He creates, he doesn't let the game come to him. He creates the game. He is a catalyst, and that's what he's doing in the Swedish Hockey League. And trust me, I can't understand it, but sometimes on some of these, billions of cable channels that I get now, there's a Swedish hockey game going on from the Swedish Hockey League, and
cable do you have?
I can't understand it. I've got DirecTV, really cool. And it's I got all the sports packages. That's the only way I can get the tennis channel, sport, which I love. And that's who's right, big tennis fan too. Our fine, I guess, executive producer Mark Milligan. Just when you start talking tennis, he's effusive. You think he's a baseball geek. When Mark talks tennis, whoa! I mean, even my head bursts. But with that said, he hates it. Lucas Raymond is doing exactly what he should do. Now, Theodor Niederbach. Well, let me tell you about this young man. Now, he is playing on Frölunda's J national team, which is the second ring down. It's the second best league in Sweden behind the Swedish Hockey League. All these teams, Frölunda, they all have it, where we would have like Little Caesars and maybe the U.S. development team and then college and then the Red Wings. In Europe, it's a little bit different. It's all under one roof. All the teams have all various levels. So right now, Niederbach is playing for the J20 team, Frölunda's junior J20 team. Now, last year, after he missed the whole season for injury in 2018-19, he had 48 points. He had 15 goals, 33 assists in 40 games. Now, this year, now remember, he's a year removed from his injury, so he's really healed. A lot of times it takes about a year or so, even though you're playing and you're medically cleared, to get your body back up to snuff. Well, this year, in 13 games, he has 7 goals, 5 assists, 22 points, 6 penalty minutes, and he's a +3. A +3. He also he's a little bit feisty, but he is also a playmaker. He has great vision. He can anticipate. He knows, much like Lucas Raymond, he can play a two-way game, but he knows when he has to, he knows when he needs to stay with his man or where he can leave his man and go create a play or go help out a teammate. He has that kind of knack. So really, when you look at Theodor Niederbach and you look at Lucas Raymond and what they have done early on in the Swedish Hockey League, the third best professional league in the entire world, future looks good for Detroit.
bright, and two other guys that are really a part of the Red Wings' future. We like to call them the Phils. Carly, what are they up to?
Yes, Philip Zadina and Philip Hronek. They're over in the Czech season. The Czech season, excuse me, hasn't started yet. Only exhibition games, as we know, have been played. Zadina, though, played a few games for HC, and bear with me with pronouncing these names. HC suffered an upper body injury, unfortunately, in late September, and was expected to miss about 4 weeks. We're almost at that 4-week mark, so hopefully we'll see him back on the ice. But Philip Hronek, who is currently on loan to HK Hradec Králové, where he has played 6 games, has put up some really good points. 2 goals, 4 assists, so that is 6 points in 5 games. I mean, that's pretty impressive. I know that we always have faith in him. He's given us awesome ice time with the Detroit Red Wings. He's one of those guys on the blue line that we really have faith in. But both of these players are expected, thankfully, to be back for Detroit Red Wings training camp, because what would we be without the Phils? So I'm excited to continue watching them, see what they put up. Hopefully Zadina will be back very soon. But it's pretty cool seeing them back playing in their hometowns, but home countries. But Daniela in Sweden.
Some more Swedish players. We know the Red Wings really like the Swedish players, so we've got guys playing over there. A couple other guys, Carly, as you said, really excited to watch those two play. We're doing our best to keep up with the stats and the games that are happening overseas, so we'll bring that all to you as we move forward. 2 other guys that are playing really well. Jonathan Berggren, who was drafted in 2018, the 2nd round, and he's yet to be signed to an entry-level deal for the Red Wings, but he has had 6 points in his last 5 and he has played 8 games thus far, and he's already eclipsed his point total for the 1920 season in 16 fewer games. I have to tell you, like I said, they're playing overseas. We don't always have all the stats. We can't always watch all of the games, but I have seen a lot of hype around Jonathan Berggren lately. So really exciting to see him kind of coming into his own. And then there's also Matthias Bromia, who is playing pretty well. He's had 2 goals, 7 assists, 9 points in 8 games played. So another guy to look out for. And notable Red Wings prospects also playing in Sweden, which in Moritz Seider and Joe Veleno, who had both played in Grand Rapids last season. And they haven't played very many games yet. I think Moritz Seider has played 2. Joe Veleno has played 3. Joe Veleno has 2 points and Moritz Seider has logged 1, but he's getting quite a bit of ice time. He's getting about 16.5 minutes of ice time over those 2 games. So we'll definitely be watching all of these guys playing the season over in Sweden, and we'll bring you as many updates as we can right here on the Word on Woodward. And that is going to wrap it up today, you guys, for Bet You Didn't Know, presented by PointsBet Sportsbook. PointsBet is an official gaming partner of the Detroit Tigers. Download the app and follow PointsBet USA on social media for more information. We've still got a very exciting show planned for you guys. Art is going to talk to Dan Petrie later in the show, and Ken Call is going to join us live for Downtown Hockeytown. But right now, we're going to get into Brush Street Beat. Presented by McLaren Healthcare. Today's guest is Lynn Henning, MLB journalist. Lynn, thank you so much for taking the time to join us today.
Hi, Daniela. Hi, Art. Good to talk some baseball with you two today.
Yes, we're excited to have you. And I understand that you spent some time in Lakeland for the Tigers Instructional League. Just kind of talk in general, what was it like down there? We know that these guys haven't really had any real competition for a while. So what was it like to see that happening?
No, it was unusual. Of course, all through my years past, I've been in Lakeland generally in February and March. And so it was a little bit unusual to suddenly be there in October with autumn light and all the other stuff that you're dealing with. That was really atmospherically a lot different. What was different, though, was substantively too, Daniela and Art. That is the most talent I have seen on a minor league Tigers farm field in many a decade. And I think that simply represents really the first dividend from what people have gone through the last few years. You get better draft positions, you get much better players, and suddenly now you've got this core of young talent that really could be exceptional and probably will fuel not only a rebuild, but maybe a playoff competitive team here in the not too distant future. So that stood out very clearly and very abundantly.
Lynn, I'm going to get right into it since I've dealt with hockey so long, and I see kids from 18 on. So age isn't that big of an issue for someone like me, because I'm used to seeing, as I said, very young players make it in the National Hockey League. And I know I shouldn't cross-mix sports, but how good is Riley Green? I mean, to me, he seems to be that special type of player.
He's better than I anticipated, Art, and that is, we all knew how good this guy was, but to be barely 20 and to have displayed the categorical skills that I saw from him last week, he was a tick above anything that I anticipated. And of course, I say, well, look, makeup is great, but let's see your skill level first. And I'm the first to agree there. I don't think makeup has that much to do with whether or not you're going to be a successful athlete. It helps. And when you have the kind of stability and the kind of intellect that Riley Green has, and the comportment, you got even a better chance at being the kind of franchise player that they thought they were getting in him and in Spencer Torkelson, which is almost a replica of what I've just said. Those two guys back to back, Art and Daniela, are going to be pretty exceptional.
Torkelson, Lynn, when we talked to him via Zoom on Monday, he was talking about the transition that he's making from first base to third base. And he gave himself an 8 out of 10 at third base. And of course, he's a 10 out of 10 at first base. But would you agree with that? Did you get to see enough of him at third base to say he's an 8 out of 10?
That's a great question. And that's the question I think we're all asking. We didn't really see that many chances from him during those first few games. But I think what you have to trust there, Daniela, is the fact that people like Alan Trammell, who always levels with me about a player, says that Torkelson is probably going to be just fine, and maybe even more than just fine there at third. And other scouts in defense, too, of that move had told me from other teams, if they were going to draft Torkelson, they'd be moving him from third base, most likely, or rather from first base, with a corner outfield position, one of the options there. But if he couldn't play third, Danielle and Art, I don't think they would be continuing this experiment. I know they trust his athleticism enough, and how he fielded at first base, his arm is sufficient for third for sure. And what that does is it opens up another opportunity, if he is able to stick at third, for a kid like Gage Workman to move to shortstop. And there, I think, is the most intriguing person probably on that whole farm right now, because he's a switch hitter. He has tremendous power. He's a big kid. And yet he's not so big at this point that you can't consider him as a shortstop. What I saw from him last week, again, very, very limited amount of opportunities, but you could see how terrific of an athlete he is and really how adaptable he might be there at shortstop. So suddenly you have a little wider avenue on the left side of the infield for some prospects, providing the bats cooperate. And there are good signs there, certainly with Torkelson, and I think with Workman as well. This is the kind of lineup ultimately that can make a difference in Detroit.
Len, you said you saw a lot of talent up there, a real upgrade in the Tiger Farm system over previous times that you've covered Instructional League, heck, probably even been down in spring training. What I'm curious about, we can talk about Riley and Spencer Torkelson for a month of Sundays. I mean, we can go on and on. Who else stood out? I know you said Gage Workman, but I'm kind of curious. Who else was you walked away pretty impressed with?
I think you got to wait and see how those outfielders blossom and flourish probably a little bit, Art and Daniela. But I can tell you right now, they've got three possibilities there in Daniel Cabrera in left, Parker Meadows did 2 years ago, and then also Bryant Packard. I think you've got to consider him because his bat is going to play. Now, they're making a good move there in moving Packard to first base and letting him get some opportunities there, because this is a guy with a tremendous stick. I mean, he can hit. And if they're able to find a position for a guy who doesn't have all that many, first base makes the most sense, or DH. you throw another stick of dynamite potentially into that batting order, because everybody knows, every scout says the bat is probably going to play in the big leagues and maybe pretty well. So I think there are a lot of people there. I think if you want to go younger in the outfield, Jose De La Cruz, who's 18, and it's early, but there's a reason they signed him for a lot of money out of the Dominican. He is a pretty good looking young talent with a tremendous body and power, and let him grow up a little bit and you might have, again, something special there. But this is an example, Danielle and Art, of something I have not seen there as, again, in decades, and that is a combination of talents across the board. And that's the product of the last 3 drafts. They've taken a different philosophy. They've certainly gotten analytics involved in their drafting. And you see the difference. It's all the difference. And not since the mid-'70s, when they seeded the 1984 team, have I seen that much young talent on a Tigers farm.
Lynn, what about Cody Clemens? He had an interesting season where he was playing in the Constellation Energy League in Texas, where he actually got 100 legitimate at-bats. Did you notice him in Lakeland? Yeah,
that's another good one, Danielle. I think he is, along with Workman, one of the most intriguing guys. And there's something what would equate to a lot of pressure on him. They don't really have a lot of second basemen. They've got a lot of left side guys right now, but they don't really have a second baseman that you can look at and say, this is their next guy there. Cody Clemens has a wide open opportunity. I liked his at-bats very much last week, and I liked how he played defensively. And there are some bloodlines there you see manifested in Roger Clemens and in Cody Clemens. Just their disposition on the field, you can really see that the apple didn't fall all that far from the tree. That is going to be in his interest, certainly. And yet it's getting late. I think if we can have something close to a regular baseball season next year, and he can go to Double-A and hold his own statistically, and there's always the big if, then he is your next guy at second base, at least in terms of a long-term position player. But I like him a lot. There's a reason they took him as the first player in the 3rd round a couple of years ago. And you can see it playing out already. But again, he's a little older. He'll be 25 in May, so they've got to have him begin to bear fruit here very quickly. But I agree with you. I think, along with Workman, I think he is one of the 2 most intriguing guys in that whole row of very good prospects.
Lynn, I just wrote the piece you penned, shall I say, about Ron Gardenhire, and I found it fascinating because it was COVID and we didn't have much exposure to a team like we usually would during a normal season. I really did not realize and see it, and I've known him since his days at Minnesota as well, that this season was a real challenge for him on so many levels. What did you walk away with after you talked to him?
Yeah, that was the thing that jumped out, Art. Called him a couple of days ago because I wanted to wait 30 days and see how he was doing physically, first of all. And it was very enlightening. This thing just overwhelmed him. It piled up on him. And the COVID, he made it very clear. It was the protocols, it was, I think, the constant in-your-face nature of it. And a manager bears responsibility there. You've got guys that are supposed to keep their distance, wear their masks. You've got your own health concerns to worry about. As he pointed out, he's a prostate cancer survivor. He's got some diabetes, and his blood pressure and the hand trembling had hit such a height that he didn't even think he could go another week. And that's when he and Al said, well, then let's call it a career right now with 8 days left to go. It was stunning. I had feared, frankly, at the outset that this was something more than just stress, owing to his stomach problems that he'd had in Minnesota a few weeks earlier. But he explained all of that. There's no recurrence of cancer. This was just a high stress, high anxiety powder keg. And he was afraid it might go off and create even a heart attack that final week, which was Al Avila's concern too. And so they prudently said, enough's enough, and let's call it a halt right now. But he sounds great. Everything is really fine with him again. He's decompressed. He's enjoying life with Carol. He's going to go on a golf trip with his son, who's getting married in a couple of months. So it was very reassuring to have had that conversation with him, Art and Daniela, because this is a good man, as we know, and you want him around and healthy for a long time.
Yes, very glad to hear that Gardy is doing well. Lynn, thank you so much for taking the time out of your day to join us today. It's been great chatting with you, and we're going to have some Tigers news coming up shortly, so we'll have to chat with you again soon.
Absolutely, Daniela. Good talking with you and with Art today.
And a big thank you to McLaren Healthcare for presenting Breast Street Beat right here on the Word on Woodward. Still got interviews with Dan Petrie coming up for the headliner, but right now we're going to jump into Downtown Hockeytown, presented by Labatt Blue Light. And today's guest for Downtown Hockeytown is your Red Wings radio play-by-play announcer, Ken Kale, a very familiar face to the Word on Woodward. Ken, how are you doing today?
Doing great. It's always fun to be with you. It's a Thursday. The weekend's almost here, so we're getting ready for maybe some weekend football, but I can't wait to get back on the ice and see some Red Wing hockey.
I know. I think we're all sort of feeling that way. Excited for some Red Wings hockey. So that's what we're going to talk about today, Ken, especially with Tyler Bertuzzi's arbitration hearing scheduled for this Sunday. Art and I talked a little bit about this in the Big Three, and that Tyler Bertuzzi obviously is a big part of this Red Wings offense. How do you see this going for Tyler Bertuzzi and the Red Wings?
Well, it's getting to the point now in players' careers where they want to make as much hay as possible when the sun shines, and I think that's the position that Tyler Bertuzzi is in right now. He wants a contract that's going to set him up probably for the next one, which will probably be the biggest one of his career. And all players, when they get to this position, they want the best for them. And I'll tell you what, Bertuzzi played, I think almost all the games for the Red Wings last year. I mean, I think he was injured for a couple, but for the most part, he was out there on a regular shift on a continual basis, and he was playing almost 20 minutes offensively for this Red Wing team. So, I think he wants to, get taken care of. And if he feels arbitration is the way to do it, then that's what he's going to do. But everything will get settled. He'll be back in a Red Wing uniform, and he'll have some more greenbacks in his pocket, and hopefully he can have another good season.
I wanted to put some emphasis on this too, that we have had Steve Yzerman joining the Detroit sports media via Zoom a couple of times throughout the draft and free agency. And he has made it clear a couple of times that he wants to get deals done with Anthony Mantha and Tyler Bertuzzi. And they also want to get deals done with the Red Wings. So he was pretty confident that deals will get done. Art, I want you to kind of talk about this. And Sarkhan for MLive wrote an article yesterday about the second potential buyout that the Red Wings can utilize now that Tyler Bertuzzi did file for arbitration. Do you see them utilizing that?
I don't. I there's only one candidate that Steve would buy out, and that would be Franz Nielsen. Franz Nielsen, if he were to buy him out now, with 2 years left on his deal, then that would carry over for the next 4 seasons. Nielsen would be against the Red Wing cap. Justin Abdicator, who the Red Wings did buy out, he's on the books for the next 6 years because he had 3 years left on his deal. I'm not sure at this point where the team is at, if Steve Yzerman is going to buy out Franz Nielsen and have him on the books for 4 more years, with Justin being on the books for the next 6. And also, because this is going to be a shortened season, and, gosh, we're hearing 58 games, 62 games, maybe 68 games. It's all over the board right now. But then, so what, you're going to be paying Nielsen less money, 2-game schedule. So I would say that Nielsen is a candidate for buyout. I believe that he is, unless he wows the Red Wings this season, which, I think we all hope he can do that. I mean, I'd love to see him rebound. He's a terrific person, as we know, been a guest here on the Word on Woodward. But if he doesn't, I think Steve buys him out next year, where he will only be on the books for 2 seasons as opposed to 4. So that's how I think that's going to play out, because Bertuzzi filed for arbitration. And Ken's right. This is the best time for him. I mean, he's coming off back-to-back 20-goal seasons. He has that, that really obscure record of being the only Red Wing in the history of the franchise to get, 4 points in 3 consecutive games, or I can't even remember what it was, but no one had ever done. I mean, if he's going, the time is ripe for him based on his numbers, which are similar to kind of Dylan Larkin, who, obviously is the highest paid player on the team, and rightly so. But I'm just saying that, this is a good opportunity for Tyler. And Steve, look, like you said, Danielle, we saw him on these calls. I mean, he's not sweating bullets that, that these guys are going to be signed. I mean, they're going to be signed. What happens, we'll see. But as far as the second buyout goes, certainty, a shorter season than 82 games. I don't think Steve's going to do it. But again, as I said earlier, and I do use his full name, Stephen Gregory Yzerman, you never know. You never know with Steve. But I'm pretty sure he's not going to, I don't think he's going to exercise the second buyout.
Well, here's the thing, too, with Frans Nielsen is the fact that Frans Nielsen's a veteran player. And, last year's team, they weren't very good offensively. And I think, especially playing in a second-line center position at times, now when you have Bobby Ryan coming in and you've got a little more support from the forwards, maybe he drops down a little bit. He's still a good defensive forward. And, if the Red Wings change their system a little bit, they're better in their own zone, and he's always been a pretty good two-way player, maybe there's some value from Frans Nielsen, and perhaps maybe his numbers will be better because, he's not expected to do as much as maybe he has in the last couple of years. So, maybe this is a blessing in disguise for Frans Nielsen, maybe next year. And if it is a shortened season, he stays healthy and he can really help this club.
I think it's a good opportunity for Frans Nielsen. Ken, you make a good point. You did freeze for a second, so if you said this, I'm sorry for repeating myself, but we have seen the Red Wings improve over the past couple of weeks here because of the free agent signings that Steve Frans Nielsen. That could be a positive thing too. You've got more forwards, more veteran presence, and maybe he'll mix better with the guys that he's playing with. So I do think there is some opportunity there for him to kind of have that bounce back season. Ken, I also want to ask you about Anthony Mantha. So obviously, Tyler Bertuzzi files for arbitration, but there is still no deal done with Anthony Mantha, who did not file for salary arbitration. I want to ask you this, and I know, like I said, we talk about how confident we are that deals will get done. Is there still a chance we could see an offer sheet for Anthony Mantha?
Well, that's always a possibility, although I think general managers in today's game don't like to throw that out because it could bite them in the behind later on when they have a star player and another team would offer an offer sheet because of that. I don't think you'll see it. And, if let's just say Montreal gives Mantha an offer sheet and offers him a boatload of money, well, he heads over to Montreal if the Red Wings don't match it, and then Montreal is going to pick some top players and some top picks for it. So, I don't really see it happening. It's too bad for Anthony Mantha money-wise because he got off to a terrific start. Remember, he had that 4-goal game early in the season, and then he got hurt. And then he came back in, started playing well again, then he got hurt again. And you just have to think that if he could have played all 82 games, his numbers would have been really up there because I thought last year was his best year so far in the National Hockey League. And, because he wasn't healthy, I don't think he can go to arbitration right now. I don't think he'd have too good of a case because he only played a minimal amount of games last year. But with that said, an opportunity for him exists where maybe he can get a short-term deal, and then his next big deal will be a big contract as well.
Switch gears a little bit on this next question, and Art, you can answer it first. I kind of want to hear what both of you have to say, though. We did just previously talk about, and bet you didn't know, some of our players that are overseas right now, specifically Filip Hronek and Filip Zadina, who are Red Wings. And Zadina battled injury last season. He's battling an injury right now. So let's just say heading into the Red Wings training camp, whatever that may be, what advantages will Zadina have having played some time in the Czech Republic?
Well, first of all, I think Ken's absolutely right. I just have to mention that, Montreal, there's always been rumblings that they want the BT Express to come home. It's not going to happen, period. It's not. And because, especially this season, because of the cap and the cap situation where so many teams in Montreal, Marc Bergevin's done a good job this offseason. They've done a good job this offseason. I tip my cap to Marc Bergevin and what Montreal has done. But Anthony Mantha, there's going to be no offer sheet. The way, too many teams are up against the cap ceiling. It just doesn't make it. And and they might have changed this, but let's say Anthony Mantha is signed by Montreal. I think the Red Wings would get like 4 number 1 picks. I still wouldn't trade, or I would match the offer if I were the Red Wings, but it's never going to come to that. Now, in the case of Filip Zadina, it's a huge advantage. I mean, Filip Zadina is already penciled in as a top 6 forward on this Red Wings team. He was really starting to come into his own. He found a comfort level. I've said this before. What I liked about Filip the AHL, didn't sulk, perfected his game, came back, and when given the opportunity last year, we saw that incredible shot. No offense to Big Tony, to the BT Express. I think Zadina's shot's the best on the team. I really do. So now he's going to the Czech Republic. He's playing it for his hometown team where his dad is the assistant coach. So this is just going to work wonders for him, for his confidence. He's very, very comfortable. Obviously, he knows the coaching staff. So I think this will do nothing but help the Phil, as we call him, the Phil, Zadina, when he comes back. He'll have games under his belt. And trust me, I had him on a podcast when he was in the Czech Republic a couple of months ago now, I guess. And he can't wait to get back to Detroit. He wishes the borders were open. He wants to be in Detroit right now, even though he likes playing for his dad and the Czech team and all that. But he wants to be here. He wants to be perfecting his game. He wants to get in that red and white. He wants to get on that ice, and he just wants to start filling the opposition's net with pucks. And that's exactly what he's going to do.
I love it. And just a fun fact before I ask Ken one more question. Moritz Seider and Lucas Raymond are actually facing off right now. Their teams are pretty exciting. I wish we could watch. Apparently, I need Art's cable set up because then I would be able to watch the game. But Ken,
I'll channel surf right now and see if it's here. I can't carry the TV in though, but
yeah, let us know. You do that. I'm going to ask Ken one more question before we wrap it up here. Talking about Filip Zadina and Filip Hronek, I think as Art mentioned earlier, there's going to be some competition at training camp this season, and some of these guys aren't playing right now. Filip Hronek, Filip Zadina are. How will that impact them battling for spots, or do you think both of them are already a lock anyway?
No, I don't think I think Hronek's going to make the team, Filip Zadina as well too. Yeah. But what you really want is you want that competition. And as Art mentioned, what I liked about Filip Zadina last year is that he gets the NHL now. It took him a while, maybe he understands what it's going to take to make it into the National Hockey League and play on a regular basis. He had 15 points last year. I think it was 8 goals and 7 assists, and then he got hurt. But the thing about Filip Zadina is that he's a sniper. He's a goal scorer, and he just has to find ways to get in the open spots. And if you get a guy down the road like a Lucas Raymond who can get him the puck, he and Mantha, they can put the puck in the net on a regular basis. So I'm really kind of thrilled and excited because he does have a really good shot. But again, he's bigger. He's stronger. He's got a couple of years under his belt, played really well last year in the American Hockey League. So, and then when he was up with Detroit, I thought he just he really was starting to come on before he got injured. I was sorry to see that happen, but he's going to be a crowd favorite. He's going to put the puck in the net, as Art said, and I can't wait to see him on the ice performing each and every game for the Red Wings.
I can't wait either. And Steve Yzerman had said it himself that Zadina is ready to be a full-time NHLer. So it's going to be a very exciting, whatever that may be. Ken, thank you so much for joining us and talking some Red Wings hockey on Downtown Hockey Town. We really appreciate it. And of course, a big thank you to Labatt Blue Light for presenting Downtown Hockey Town. Labatt Blue Light, refreshing Canadian Pilsner. Visit your local retailer when safe to pick up some Labatt Blue Light. Now, everybody, we're going to switch gears back into baseball. And in honor of the World Series, Art sat down with a former World Series champion.
Thank you, Daniela. This is the headliner presented by Miller Lite. Our guest is former Detroit Tiger pitcher, World Series champion, and currently an analyst for Fox Sports Detroit, Dan Petrie. Dan, thanks for joining us. Always appreciate it.
Yeah, it's always good to see you and talk to you, Art. And yeah, it's been a little while, a couple of weeks anyway, since we last spoke. So can't wait to hear what's on your mind.
Well, I'll tell you what. First of all, I have to say this here. I have to congratulate you and your son, Jeff. Great deal by the Montreal Canadiens. Well earned. They're right there.
Yeah, that was very, very nice for Jeff and his family. And, you know, in my opinion, I know a lot of people around here don't want to hear it, but Montreal has made some nice moves in the offseason. And I know that they're trying to do everything they can to win soon. And I mean very soon. So hopefully that'll happen for Jeff.
Well, no, there's no doubt. Got better this year, and so I'm really looking forward to the next hockey season. But again, I can remember many years ago you came up to me at a Red Wing game, I think in the media lounge, and said, "Hey, Art, they tell me my son's pretty good in hockey. I don't really know who to talk to, you know." And I could say, and I remember talking to you about it, talking to Ken Holland and Jimmy Nill. But I'm really, really happy for you, and I'm really happy for Jeff. You know, followed him, obviously covered him at Michigan State as well as during his pro career. It's about to be decided in another sport right now. We're at the World Series. I wasn't sure if we were ever going to get here. The two best teams in baseball, which doesn't really happen a lot, are playing for the championship. We're doing this on Tuesday afternoon, so right now the Dodgers are up 1-0. There will be another game on Tuesday night. I'm just kind of curious, your thoughts about this World Series. I mean, I think the Dodgers are going to win going away, but how do you view this World Series?
Well, first of all, it's nice at this point to your original statement about going through the pandemic and having a couple of teams almost shut down and really worried about even getting to this point. And a lot of credit is due to coaches and all the staffs by following the rules and making sure that they kept everybody safe. It was getting really scary there for a while. And then, like you said, to have two teams with the best record playing for the title, certainly doesn't happen all the time, especially when you're in a situation where you have a best 2 out of 3 to start the wild card off with. I mean, anything can happen, something like that. You get a hot pitcher here, and all of a sudden you got a number 1 seed that bites the bullet. But I always root for the American League, Art. But and I still am. But the Dodgers are awfully good and a very, very complete team. But I don't know about going away. We'll see how that works out. No home field advantage, so we'll see what happens. But it does seem.
Well, usually I root for the American League team too, obviously, growing up as an American League fan, being a Tiger fan my whole life. But, I've told this story before, so I'm not going to bore you with it. But I have a first major league locker room I ever went into was the Los Angeles Dodgers. Walt Alston was the manager. Those will show you how long ago it was. But so I always kind of had a special spot in my heart for the LA Dodgers. But with that said, I'm just kind of curious. You brought it up. You pitch in the World Series. how big is home field in a World Series? Because neither one of these teams is going to experience that. Will that be a huge factor, do you believe?
Well, it's hard for me really to say. I mean, at least there's crowds. At least they have some kind of a crowd there, at least with 10 or 12,000 people, whatever it is. So, I pitched game 2 down in the '84 World Series, and I mean that crowd out there, and that's an outdoor stadium. That was the loudest crowd I ever experienced, and that includes being at the Metrodome back in 1987 when we were playing them for the American League Championship, the Twins. And that place was really loud. But I just, me personally, never experienced as crazy and as loud as San Diego back in 1984. So does it really happen in the game? Not really, because you're used to the crowd, and you might as well say, hey, they're cheering for me, so it doesn't affect your performance. But if you're the home team, you should certainly get fired up by your home crowd.
Well, right, and I wanted to say, I mean, obviously, Dan, you won the World Series in '84. You pitched in, you're a native Californian, so it might have been kind of cool, even though you were, almost in Mexico if you're pitching in San Diego. But to be back kind of goes into your mindset when you're so close to the pinnacle. You're so close to getting what you play for, which is a world championship. What was that experience like for you?
Well, I thought I was getting ready to ask about the Dodgers and the Rays, but it was back in '84 for us. It was more of, I mean, you really never know how many chances you're going to get. So, I think we certainly felt like we always were going to win it. Even though we went up against the Kansas City Royals, we had to start in Kansas City, American League Championship. And, again, anything can happen once you start, in a short series like that. I just think that we just never really thought that we were going to be denied. And that's probably what's going through the Dodgers' mind, just to talk about them, is, they've been there before. A couple of times and come up short. So I think that they're feeling like, I don't care, if it's a 60-game season or not. A championship still is a championship. I think that they're probably just thinking, this year's our year. We're not going to let it slip away.
No, I agree with you. I've been impressed with what Tampa's able to do, mashing the ball around, a bullpen where I think every guy throws at least 98 miles an hour. They certainly have a chance. I want to move on because people are probably sitting at home going, hey, you've got Peaches on. You're not going to ask him anything about the Tigers? Come on. We love the World Series, but come on, ask him about the Tigers. Tigers going through instructional league right now. How important is that for the guys that did, even though playing, I know Toledo was a great experience for some of them, but nothing beats live competition, right, Dan? You've got to be playing against not your buddies and all that, somebody else.
Absolutely. And, the only disappointing thing is, I certainly wish that some of the 40-man roster kids could have still participated, meaning Casey Mize and Tarek Skubal, just to maybe get a couple more innings in. It's so important for these kids. Some of them were very fortunate to play in a league like Cody Clemens, that league that his dad had, Roger down in Texas, that he was, a lot of former players and current players were playing in it. So that was really a good experience for him. But now we're going up against the best of other organizations, and let's see how we stack up against them. But I'm very optimistic. But, the same thing happened back in 1984. There was, a lot of, hey, how good is Kirk Gibson and Lance Parrish and Lou Whitaker and Alan Trammell and Jack Morris? How good are they? We one time also. So it's just a matter of how many are going to take that next step, and this part of it, going to the instructional league and continue their development.
Well, certainly, and you guys proved that you were worth your, all the hype, shall we say? I mean, that '84 Tiger team, best start in Major League Baseball, 35-5. I can list all the accolades of that club, but I won't. I really want to move, and I'm going to jump around a little bit because there's so many pressing issues for the Tigers this year. This managerial search, Dan, how do you see that playing out? Do you think that Al Avila wants to hire the guy that will be eventually the guy that takes the Tigers to the promised land?
I would think so. I don't know that you just want to bring somebody in and just say, I want you to develop these kids and everything. I think you want it to be somebody that's a really good teacher. And I think Al has even come out and said that, a really good teacher and someone that can develop young talent. In a couple of years, that young talent is going to be all here at one time. He said that, Chris Ilitch will at that time go out and, find a missing piece or two. What makes it interesting is the other ones that have popped up, the White Sox job and the Red Sox. And, we're not quite done yet. Some of these other clubs that may have lost in the playoffs, are they considering maybe making a move? It's going to be very, very important, I think, that they get this one right.
Dan, as I said, I know I'm jumping around. There's several moves. I'm not even going to ask you any more prospect questions because the Tigers, it looks like they'll need a first baseman, second baseman, a corner outfielder, and maybe some veteran pitchers, depending on where the young arms are. When you look at some of the guys, do you think an Austin Romine? Do you think C.J. Crone, Jonathan Scope? How do you think that's going to play out as far as that veteran presence, which is important for a building club?
You pick up a lot of, good questions right there. I mean, first talk about first base. I mean, C.J. Crone, that hurt a lot, that bat, him going down so early. And then, Candelario did well over there at first base. And you got Torkelson, who's being developed as a third baseman right now. So I don't know that they would switch Candelario back over to third. The guy that, I'm wondering about is Isaac Paredes. What happens to him? I mean, if you got Torkelson coming up maybe as soon as next summer, if everything goes perfectly for him, where do you move Paredes? Can he play second? I don't know. Are you sold with Willie Castro at shortstop? He had a great year offensively. His defensive runs saved at shortstop with that, I think was a -7, something like that. So, are you sold there? So there's still a lot of, decision made by Al, but that's why that manager is going to be so important.
Well, we'll see. There's so many questions, Dan, and unfortunately we've run out of time, but we'll have you on real soon. And I hope next time, Dan, your buddy Wilson, your trusty little baseball, makes an appearance the next time on the Headliner.
That movie, and then no, not Shipwreck. What the heck was the name of that thing?
Was it Castaway? Was it Castaway or something like that? It was a Tom Hanks movie. Yeah.
Castaway, and I thought of it right after we were off the air. But this time I'll make it a point to have that thing out.
Really. All right, sounds great. All right, that sounds great. Do that next year at Fox Sports Detroit, and could be great. Like instead of talking to Keating, just looking at Wilson. I think that the Tigers need to do this. That would be hilarious. That nothing would really put John Keating, like, make him stop because he's so talented. He always has a comeback. But if you were to start talking to your baseball with a face on it, I think that would be outstanding. That would be outstanding.
He is very talented, but maybe I could just convince him to start talking to it too. What do you think, John? Tell him.
Perfect. That's going to be perfect, Dan. On that note, we're going to have to end it. But Dan Petrie, always a pleasure talking to you. Thanks for joining us on the Headliner, and look forward to talking to you during the offseason. That'll do it for this edition of the Headliner, brought to you by Miller Lite. It is the original light beer. It's only 96 calories. It tastes delicious. Available for delivery. Daniela, back to you.
Thank you, Art, and another thank you to Dan Petrie for joining us. It's always great to catch up to him. Now you catch up with him, I should say. Now, you guys, we're going to get into Let's Socialize, presented by AAA. And of course, Carly is going to take over for me on this segment. Carly, I know that you've got some really fun stuff for us today. So what is it?
That is right. Okay, first question is up for Art. So earlier you said that Zadina had the best shot on the current Detroit Red Wings roster. Bold statement, gotta love it. But we had a fan ask, which Detroit Red Wings player has the best shot of all time? So what do you think? And you only get one player. None of this like 6 players all have the best shot answer.
You know, Mickey Redmond had a great shot. John Ogrodnik had a great shot. Man, that's a really difficult one. A really tough shot. Who had the best shot on the Red Wings? I'm going to tell you. I think I'm going to go with Johnny Ogrodnik. Him going down that wing, and he was a 50-goal scorer too. And just uncorking, when you say, I think slap shot, I mean, let me clarify that. I definitely want to say, I think it was Johnny O. In my lifetime, there's a lot of great players. Mickey Redmonds was great. Certainly the Express, the BT Express, Big Tony Mantha, he definitely has a good one. But I'm going to say O'Brien. I'm going to say Johnny O.
A recent guy who had a good slap shot, Marty Firk. I mean, that, was his famous shot.
Marty Firk, it was a weapon. His slap shot was a worst thing. But you know what? That's a good call, Carly. I have to tip my cap to you and say, yes, that was a very, very good one. Marty Firk's shot was incredible.
That was a scary shot. I would not want to be in anywhere around that. All right, next up, question for Daniela. A fan wants to know. Oh, okay, this is a cool question. In a game of current Swedish players versus current Czech players, who wins?
Okay, this is probably the easiest question I think I've ever answered, and it's because it's Swedish players for sure. That's because we could make an entire team out of just our Swedish players if you're including prospects as well. And then the Czech players that are coming to mind are obviously Filip Zadina and Filip Hronek right at the top of the list. And then Jan Bednář, who we just drafted. So you've got a forward, a defenseman, and a goaltender. But we have so many Swedish players and prospects that I just have to go with the Swedish team. I made a list. Raymond, Berggren, Johansson, Bromia, Gruve, Soderblom, Niederbach, Will Wallander. Yeah, Swedes win.
We do have a few Swedish players in the Detroit Red Wings organization, past and current. All right, last but not least, we're kind of on that Swedish and Czech. Well, not necessarily, because we see Veleno in a Swedish jersey, which is very interesting. So let's check out the pictures for that. We have Veleno, who just recently posted himself in Sweden. How crazy to see that. Look at it. It's still red and white. I'll take it. But I do like him better in a winged wheel sweater or Griffin's jersey. And then moving on to Filip Hronek. It must be nice being back home and playing hockey. I'm sure they miss Detroit, but and play your favorite sport in the whole world. So shout out to them. We miss them. We miss being in the locker room with all the players, but it's very cool seeing them spread their wings and be able to play hockey during this difficult time.
I don't know if you noticed, but it looks like a couple of our colleagues liked the photos on of Veleno and Hronek. Yeah. Guys, get back to work. All right, quit scanning the internet here. Let's. What are you doing? I mean, hopefully they were doing that on their free time. Hopefully they were doing it on their free time. I mean, yeah, boom, I like this one.
Isn't it sort of their job to be on social media?
Right?
Pardon me?
social media.
Yeah, someone keeps sending me breaking news here.
Actually, yeah, we have some new jerseys the Detroit Red Wings just posted. We will see Stahl number 18, Greiss number 29, Stetcher number 70, Merrell in 24, Ryan in 54, and Nemesnikov in 92. Very interesting. What do you think of these numbers?
I think that that's good. I mean, number two. I didn't hear it in the beginning because I thought there was some other breaking. I keep getting bombarded with some other breaking news that we can't get confirmation on. So I didn't miss. What were the first couple of numbers? Did you say?
Sorry.
Stahl. What's Stahl wearing?
Stahl is 18. Greiss is 29 because we have number 1 retired as something or a number that he previously wore. Torrey Stetcher is 70. John Merrell is 24. Ryan was 9, but now is 54 because that number is retired in the Detroit Red Wings organization. And then Nemesnikov will be wearing number 92.
Well, let me ask you this question, and this is going to be a tough one, and I want you to, pretend like, it's finals up in East Lansing, and this is a big study, remember? Bobby Ryan is wearing number 54. Why do you think that is?
Because 5 + 4 = 9.
Oh, yeah.
There you go.
It's the girl who always says she's so bad at math. You can add a back for that.
Yeah, I had my doubts there for a second when you both had that blank look on your face, but very, very good, Daniela.
I was thinking like, oh, wait, 54. I was like, oh, I almost just swore again. The second Daniela opened her mouth, I was like, swear jar.
Yeah, you just had to give us a second, Art. You just had to give us a second.
Yeah. I mean, you just said it. Who wore number 9 is now wearing 54.
Sorry, my brain didn't immediately go to 5 + 4 = 9.
I like
2 o'clock, so my brain is like slowly churning off.
How about if each one of these guys, like Stahl's wearing 18, right? Well, 8 and 1 is 9. How about if they all wore combinations that added up to 9? Kind of like their small tribute to Gordie Howe.
Yeah, I like that.
I don't think
Grace should be 27, right?
27? Is that
not
what you said?
29? Yeah, I don't know. Is there 27 on the roster?
Didn't Rasmussen wear 27?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think Michael did. I think I think Plum did. I think Plum does wear 27.
But I wonder how that works with so I know when Filppula came back to Detroit, wasn't there do you remember the story? When he wanted his number back?
He wanted his number back, so Nielsen was a Rolex involved?
That's what I'm thinking. I think there was something involved, a little bit of bribery.
I must be remembering that wrong. It was Nielsen that gave it up?
Yeah, Val took the number and Nielsen went to 81. Was that it?
Oh, yeah.
All season, I kept getting that mixed up. Even when Filppula would make a play, I'd say, wow, I've never seen that from Nielsen before, not knowing that it was Val.
Love it. Well, very cool. So we have some new numbers to add. Go out. You guys can buy your Detroit Red Wings jerseys for Stahl, Stetcher. Why was that such a tongue twister for me? I can't talk anymore. It's time for me to hand it off. My brain is at like 10% capacity right now. We are way too close to 2 p.m.
That's funny. Well, I do have to ask one more question before we sign off. As I mentioned, I had to mention it very quickly with Ken Kale. Moritz Seider and Lucas Raymond are facing off right now. And forgive me, I cannot remember who Moritz Seider is playing for at the moment, but Lucas Raymond is in for Lunda. Their teams are playing against each other right now. Who's going to win, Art? Do you think they're going to have some banter back and forth? What's going to happen?
Perfect.
Well, with little Lou, they might be kind of a Mutt and Jeff kind of pairing there. I am going to say, even though Maurice Sider has a reach advantage and is a little tough customer, Lucas Raymond wins. Lucas Raymond, he's going to say, Lucas Raymond's going to dangle the puck in between Mo Sider's legs, go in there, kind of just like smile before he shoots it at Sider, gives him a quick little wink, puts it top shelf, and says, "Welcome to this SHL, buddy," and then skate away.
I was wondering what you're about to spell. I thought you were going to have to put some money in the swear jar.
No, SHL is Swedish Hockey League.
Yeah, I got that after you said it. I was like, I don't know, though, Art. Sider's a lot bigger than Raymond. He could probably knock him off the puck.
Yeah, but you can't hit when you can't catch. Yeah, what's the score?
Yeah.
2-1 for Lunda. 2-1 for Lunda.
Oh, it's a close game.
And it's Vogel, the team that Maurice Sider is playing for.
Okay.
And they're in the second.
Do we know who scored the goals? Do we know who scores the goals? Do any of these Red Wing prospects have points in this game?
Raymond. Not Lucas Raymond.
Hasn't gone far down yet, Art. It's coming in the third period. I can feel it.
Did they call Niederbach up? Was Niederbach one of them?
I don't think so.
Because he has played one game for the big team.
On the live stream, it's like Art's getting close to the camera. Did they call Niederbach up?
Did they tell me? Tell me. Is Niederbach playing?
All right. Well, why don't we wrap it up so Art can go watch the game on his cable that apparently gets every channel in the world. So, Art,
I have a worldwide dish. I have a worldwide dish. And let me tell you, man, TV is really funky in other parts of the world.
All right. On that note, I'm out.
Yeah, okay, that does it. That's up. Let's socialize for today, everybody. AAA says thank you with free roadside assistance for first responders and healthcare workers fighting to defeat COVID-19. You protect us by going to work every day. Let AAA protect you on the way there and back. And that does it, you guys. We are now at the end of the show. Thank you so much for tuning in today. If you missed anything on today's Word on Woodward, make sure you check out the Word on Woodward YouTube page where all of our interviews are posted, or you can listen to the show as a podcast wherever you get your Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, or Spotify. And of course, you can still catch the Fox Sports Detroit draft review with our hosts. We had Art Regner, Ken Kale, John Keating, Ken Daniels, and Trevor Thompson breaking down the draft. They were also joined by Steve Yzerman. You can catch that on Fox Sports Detroit or on Red Wing social media for the extended version. So definitely make sure you are checking that out if you haven't already. Tuesday with everything Red Wings and Tigers. So thank you for tuning in today, and we'll see you Tuesday at noon.